All right, guys, let's get this Odyssey unit going. So the purpose of this presentation is just to give you some overall background to what we will study over the course of the next couple weeks. This week in particular, we'll focus on background information, especially on who is credited with the telling of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and that is our guy, Homer. So when you hear the name Homer, this guy might come to mind, Homer Simpson. But our guy Homer is so old and did his thing so long ago that he doesn't even have a last name. He's just straight up Homer. So I want to give you a couple facts about him that I want you to know, including these. So I'll go through these notes and I'll give you a way to kind of practice the key facts and commit them to memory. First, Homer was a poet and he composed epics. Epic is a key word that you want to have in your mind. The definition of epic is a long poem. It's not a story, it's a long poem that tells the story of a hero. There are two heroes that we'll learn about. Here's a couple examples of those. Achilles will be our focus this week. He was the epic hero of the Iliad, which precedes our reading of the Odyssey. And I just threw the epic hero Paris up there as well. He's a minor prince of Troy. I just threw him up there because who wouldn't want to look at Orlando Bloom playing the role of Paris? Okay, so besides that, Homer was believed to be blind. Remember, this is a long time ago. In fact, this is the oldest thing that you'll ever study in your high school career. He composed his works in 8th century BC. So besides being blind and illiterate, and you might be like, Mrs. Allen, that's whack. How can he be blind and illiterate and write these really long epics? Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. What he wrote and the tales that he wove through the telling of the Iliad and the Odyssey, much of what you study, for example, in history class about what Greece was like, the culture of Greece, the politics of Greece, stem from these epics that Homer composed. Okay, so the oral tradition is how, despite being blind and illiterate, we can study the Iliad and the Odyssey today. So the stories were passed down orally because written language was just coming into being. There wasn't even really such a thing as the alphabet and putting words to paper. That was happening as Homer was living. So another word that you're going to have to know is this word rhapsode. So the people who told these stories out loud were called rhapsodes. They memorized and performed them. And even though they were such long stories, they still were able to commit them to memory, just in like you can commit songs to memory and you can easily spit out lyrics that you know. That was the purpose of a rhapsode. Now, that word rhapsode should look awfully familiar because that's where we get our word rapper. So this guy here is doing the same exact thing that they did in the 8th century BC when Homer was spinning these tales in the Iliad and the Odyssey. I much prefer this rhapsode who, let me just give you a brief interlude with some Ice Ice Baby. All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Ice is back with his brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, flow like a harpoon daily and nightly. Sorry for that torture. Okay, back to Homer stuff. So there are two epics that Homer is credited with telling. The Iliad is the war epic. We're going to spend some time learning about the Trojan War, which is what features the hero Achilles. So with the Trojan War, here's a map of what Greece looked like in this time period. So all those squares that point around this brown circle, these were all different kingdoms of Greece. And the era that I have pointing to one in particular is the kingdom of Ithaca. Ithaca will be important to us when we start studying Odysseus' story in the Odyssey. So all these kingdoms, including Ithaca, they all banded together, even though oftentimes they were at war themselves, and went to war against the nation of Troy. Troy was across the Aegean Sea. This is where modern day Turkey was. So all these kingdoms united. They sailed all these guys over to Troy and attacked Troy. We're going to learn the reason why a couple days from now. So the Trojan War is the basis of the Iliad. The Odyssey, which we will read starting next week, it doesn't deal with war, it deals with adventure and focuses on the hero Odysseus and him trying to get back home to the kingdom of Ithaca. Now, how do you commit all this stuff to memory? Because I want you to know the word epic and rhapsode, and I want you to know that Achilles is the hero of the Iliad and Odysseus from Ithaca is